Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this panel called Taking Web3 Mainstream. My name is Manoylov. I'm a reporter for The Block. I cover NFTs, gaming, and the metaverse. I have with me several lovely people who all deal with all things Web3. So I'm going to let themselves introduce themselves. But before we begin, just a quick bit of housekeeping. This panel is going to last for 1 hour. In that 1 hour, it's going to be 45 minutes of host-led discussion, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. So if you have a question that comes up, feel free to just drop it in the chat, and we'll get to it in that 15 minutes. Or one of our panelists will type back to you in that little chat. Yeah, so I guess without further ado, I'll let my lovely panelists introduce themselves. Sarah, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Early. I work at United Talent Agency. I lead our Web3 consulting, so working with native companies as well as more traditional Web2 and beyond companies, helping them navigate these new spaces.
Awesome. Sophia, how about you next?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sophia Schluger, Managing Director for Amber Group, here based in London and covering Europe. Amber Group is a leading digital asset company offering data, different services related to investing, financing, and trading for digital assets. And we are investing heavily in Web3 and really excited to tell you more about our Openverse platform that's launching shortly. And everything that we're doing, not just on the digital asset trading side, but also in NFTs and Web3. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Romain, how about you next?
Hello, everyone. I'm Romain Jappi, the co-founder at The New Face, an agency drawing upon the success of Al Dente, a luxury creative agency, to help clients tackle Web3. And we help them throughout, the whole stage of the project, from strategy to conception and production.
Mm-hmm. And Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Kaida. I'm founder and COO of Vysical. Vysical is a metaverse marketing agency. That's what I like to call it. So we also help brands mostly in the luxury space, although we've definitely kind of brought in with some of the projects we've been working on, helping people integrate some of these new tactics of Web3 and all that means into creating sustainable business strategies and new revenue streams. So that's something that we help often with clients. And, again, Web3 and Web2 companies, as echoing Sarah and Sophia.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. For my vision of this panel, with the topic of taking Web3 mainstream, I see three sort of movements in that. I see where we are now, where we want the future to be, or where we see the future to be, and then the movement between the two. So sort of we're at A, we're seeing C on the horizon, and we need B to happen. So so just to get some terms out of the way, I know Web3 encompasses a lot of technology and tools, from cryptocurrencies to DAOs to blockchain, etc. So tell us, when we're having this conversation, when we all think of Web3, what specific tools are we talking about, and why do they excite us?
If I may start, of course, it's very broad. In my opinion, I'm very close to Scott Belsky in what he thinks as being the future of Web3 and this whole stakeholder economy. I think it's very interesting how we can use tokens, whether it's ERC20 or NFTs, to get customers closer to the brand. And I think it's mutually beneficial both for customers and brand. It will allow us to better reflect customer needs, values, and vision into brand's value proposition. It also enables the boldest of your customers, trendsetters within your customers, to be financially incentivized, or at least incentivized to try out new products, discover new trends, and become voices of those new trends. I think there's a wide range of possibilities on how to implement this, but in the bigger picture, I think we're just putting brands much closer to the audience, to the community.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback off of that, I think that's a great answer, because I've seen a lot with clients, right? loyalty plays are great. It's like, how do we take some of these tactics and we enhance what they're already doing with their apps or with kind of, identities that they have of customers with their email accounts or their social accounts. So, not all of it is like Web3 purist, is like all decentralized and, all peer-to-peer. Like it's, baby steps, right? It's got to be a bridge. But really this identity, this concept rather, as wallets as an identity. And then the ability to, once you have that kind of like unique identifier and this kind of profile, if you will, of a person, being able to interact with them in unique ways. And so, mentioning NFTs, I love the idea of like the NFTs and the NFCs, kind of like the physical and virtual or digital twins, if you will. Obviously, this is kind of in many ways like the Internet of Things with a new name in many ways, right? But what's really the concept that's so interesting to me, especially from a luxury product lens, is typically when we sold a product to a customer, that customer went out with that product and that was it. They're like, okay, maybe we knew that they bought that, but what they did with it, we have no idea. And utilizing NFTs and NFCs and this kind of twin mechanism, we can continually push content to a product. And like that in and of itself is such an exciting innovation that I could say, buy this jacket, but then maybe the brand wants to gamify this and like, hey, if you interact with your product every single day for like a year, then we're going to give you a free perk, right? So it's like, what an innovative way to get people to not only like buy things, but then continue to love them. So I think just from like an affinity between brand and customers, there's a level of personalization en masse that a lot of these technologies can afford. So that's my long-winded answer.
I agree. I love that. I think it's the utility, right? It's what are the things you can't do today in Web 2? And some of that is reimagining loyalty programs, bringing consumers into more ownership around brands. And some of it's just the ability to expand your IP, right? And allow the consumer to do more than just observe it, but really participate with it and change it and have some sort of creative input maybe in the community in a way that Web 2 just didn't allow for today. And so that's where I feel like we've had a lot of fun playing with our companies, with our talent clients, with our creative clients. It's been a really fun journey the last 2.5 years because we're taking now their fans along with us in that journey and really being allowing them to use their own voices and creative inputs to shape even our marketing campaigns or approaches out in market in a really unique way.
At Amber Group, actually, our mission is to help realize a decentralized digital future for all, and one that is both, kind, inclusive, and fair. And so, like piggybacking on what everyone has said here about, next iteration of the internet and improvements upon Web 2, solving issues relating to like, returning, content rights to creators and artists, or, via NFTs and smart contracts, or providing more secure, digital tools, for example, or decentralizing existing, Web 2 behemoths and building a more transparent digital economy that is really user first, user owned, on chain, and based on tokenization. And so the personalization is a huge opportunity. The ability to have more community engagement, not just within, between brands and consumers, but amongst consumers. And to really leverage the technology that we're developing, whether it be machine learning and AI, to provide relevant content and experiences for consumers that we previously were not able to provide in the last iteration of Web 2. And so at Amber, we're working really hard to build the infrastructure on Rails. As I mentioned, Openverse will allow businesses, brands, and creators to transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And it's going to have all sorts of things such as an NFT validation system, gameplay, real-time interactive content, avatars, and it'll be available on web, mobile, and VR. And so, we're trying to really build the capabilities to provide to businesses so that they can make that transition and be relevant in the future.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add to that, because the way that I like to think of this, just in a summation of like Web3, is 3 buckets. So you've got the kind of extended reality experience or immersive experience, metaverse. Then you've got the kind of AI machine learning component of it. And then I like to think of the last as tokenization. So whether that's NFTs or tokens or DAOs or, new structures of kind of ownership and governance. But those are like obviously sweeping generalizations, but that's how I personally like to explain it, to simplify it for folks that are like, what are all of these terms, to your point, MK. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, this is really interesting. Just like what are the tools and what is possible with them, especially what wasn't possible in Web 2. So let's spend some time expanding on that. What is something that we can do now with Web 3 that we weren't able to do?
Well, from what we all said, I think there is one major undeniable trend is that brands definitely need to expand their digital ecosystem. Right now, this ecosystem is bounded, to the brand's website, maybe, and their social media account. That's virtually it. And the social media account, they're doing this in a non-proprietary manner. And I think what's great with those technology is that you are able to tap in your consumers' life cycle in a much more digital way. And since consumers' lives is increasingly digital, I think it makes sense to want to multiply the number of interactions that you have with your client in the digital space. And developing brand wearables, virtual worlds for brands, all that kind of implication to me is a way to multiply the number of interactions that you will have with your client and propose digital first experiences to convey emotion in the digital space, not just a service.
I really want to add on that because I totally and completely agree. And something that I've like thought of for the last, oh my gosh, I mean, at least the last 5 years, if not longer, is that the celebrity as I used to know it when I was younger is kind of dead, right? Like access is everything. People want to feel like, and you can kind of see this in the rise of like TikTok stars or Gen Z, is that they want to have that dialogue. They want to be able, even though, you know, there's still a clear delineation of separation, like they really don't have that actual access of like a true friend, but they get that constant dialogue all the time, and that makes them feel so close. And so with some of these new tools, like what's possible, at least for me, is you kind of have the scale of those interactions and engagements that was just kind of spoken about. And a great example of this is, Steve Aoki, when he did his first NFT drop with Nifty Gateway, they were on Clubhouse, remember that? And, everyone was all riled up and they're like, he's like, we get to 1 million, everyone's coming to a party at my house. And everyone was so excited, right? And then, they passed that. And so everyone, like no one has forgotten that he's like, yeah, we're all throwing a party at my house. And that's obviously impossible, right? Like there's no way that he can get like hundreds of thousands or thousands of people that like are all these strangers at his actual house. But putting his Aoki verse, right, in Sandbox, he has now a digital or virtual representation of his house that anyone and everyone can come to, right? And so there's this way of like being able to provide that access and connectivity at scale in a safe manner that still makes people feel, consumers and fans feel engaged and involved in a way that wasn't before possible. Because before, all you had to do is like all you could do rather is like watch a movie, a video, see a magazine, or maybe go to like a signing somewhere or like a red carpet. But now there are just so many different touch points across like chat, a celebrity being in their avatar, right? And like, theoretically could be with like 20,000 other people in the same instance. And like, they're kind of there with them. So it's like really interesting for me, like those possibilities. Like, I think they're quite exciting to democratize access to experiences.
I love that. And I would say I'm very excited about metaverse capabilities in that way, especially for brands. The ability for someone to be able to experience your product. Maybe they can't afford it today in the physical, or maybe it doesn't even exist in the same way. And you get to build this world around it that people can touch and feel and explore and participate around it is really interesting. Like, imagine the idea of a concept car coming to life where you could actually drive it, you could actually be around it, you could be near it. That's very, very different and really exciting in a way we can't have today necessarily. But also virtual goods, right? Rebecca, you were talking about luxury. Like if you can't afford Gucci, now maybe you can afford the virtual version, and you can bring it to life on your socials, or you can bring it to life and show your style in the metaverse in a really unique way that allows you to participate with a brand you love, even if in your daily life it's not attainable. That is super exciting about where we're going with Web3.
Yeah, I would just chime in to say, at Amber, we've got actually some pretty high profile football sponsorships with Chelsea Football Club, but also with Atletico de Madrid in Spain. And, as part of that, we are launching Athletiverse, which is a metaverse for the Atletico Madrid community, again, to reinforce engagement and ties between and within the community. And as part of that, I think there's also incredible new revenue streams that, participants can take advantage of in Web3. So, for example, we're also launching a collection of 1001 NFT boots through Stepin. Stepin's like a Web3 lifestyle app that basically promotes healthy ways of living. So it rewards you and encourages you to exercise. So that is one way in which, those who purchase NFT are going to be able to be rewarded with exclusive products and experiences. But it's also a way in which, to encourage people to live a healthy lifestyle. And so we're really excited about that partnership and sort of being more of a digital wealth and lifestyle partner to our clients and our community. So that's just another way in which, we can engage with communities and help communities engage even further. And, 10% of the proceeds of that will be going to the Atletico de Madrid's foundation to help, finance some schools. So there's a lot of ways in which, we can leverage Web3 to do more good in the world and to promote healthy lifestyle and looking towards sustainability being a force for good, for societal issues that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I think that last piece is really important. We did a partnership with L'Oréal Paris last year where a portion of proceeds from secondary sales went to their Women of Worth initiative. And I think being able to easily share those proceeds and be easily able to support some sort of charitable initiative or to do good in the world or to create social change, that also is such an exciting component of the space for me that really changed the dynamic of both how brands interact, but also how consumers' sales are interacting out in the world.
I agree completely. I think the transparency of smart contracts and the automation of things, it really adds, I don't know, just such a component of assurance for folks versus before things were kind of a little bit of like a black box. Like we say we're doing this, but you can't really audit the chain, or audit the transactions. And so for better or for worse, this transparency is available and ready for anyone who should seek it. And I'm sure everyone collectively here knows, the folks on Discord and Twitter that are part of communities, they're going to look, they're going to find it. And I think that allows an accountability that, we've never really had before, which is both exciting and scary, but something that we can definitely kind of grow into, I'm confident of.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's so true for sports, doesn't it? Fans are already the most involved and engaged customers in the world. And to me, the ultimate Web3 integration for sports would look something like Wagme United. I don't know if you guys saw this football club owned by fans, and I think being able to vote for football, player transfers, player purchases, being the football manager in real life through token ownership is really interesting.
Oh, I think that there might be something coming down the pipeline that you'll be excited about.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of interesting companies doing interesting things in Web3. And I guess to zoom out a little bit, certain industries are really running with this technology. So in this period, in this transition period from Web3 adoption as we know it to more mainstream Web3 adoption, which industries are going to really be prominent players in that transition?
Rebecca, I don't know what you think, but from the luxury side, people are getting very busy around Web3. I feel.
Oh my God, yes. In Europe, yeah. I mean, you're based, or where are you based?
I'm based in Paris.
Okay, so yeah, in Paris. I mean, I was at Vivitech this year, and it was through the roof. Seeing the chairman of LVMH be metaverse and NFTs is the future of our conglomerate is a huge kind of stamp of approval. But Europe is kind of committed, or Paris, and kind of luxury. And even in 2018, LVMH, their innovation awards were awarded to Aura, the Aura consortium, right? That's been tasked with tracking luxury products. And as they've developed and they've had more conglomerates join them, like Richemont and other folks from Kering and different maisons, I mean, there's going to be a lot of innovation there. And you've already seen it. Prada's already rolled out some authenticated goods on Aura's blockchain, right? What they do next with consumer-facing experiences is where I'm the most excited, because I think that's where the true opportunity lies. But we'll see. Yeah. So that's. Sorry, Romain, not to interrupt you.
No, and I think I like your. I mean, we've been working closely with Kering on that strategy, and I think what was really nice is that at the very beginning, uh, executives, employees were really keen on learning about this new topic, and that led to a serious game being developed for Kering on Discord. All employees creating their wallets, entering the metaverse, creating this first caring Web3 community. It was really nice to see. And I think, but coming back to the strategy part for luxury brands, I think, and what you were saying earlier, Sarah, I think there's a major strategic choice to be made here with respect to the pricing and the value that you give to digital goods that you create. Um, I mean, right now our reality is increasingly composed of our digital life. At least that's real for me, and I think that is real for you as well. And a gaming environment could be a good part of your reality sometimes. And I think it, it would be, in my opinion, not the best choice to give a financial value that is downgraded to digital items with respect to physical items, because I think the digital experience has to be valuable enough to justify the same price, and being able to create fluidity between your physical closet and your digital closet. I think that is really where the opportunity lies. I think we've all seen those Balenciaga Facebook avatars. I think that is kind of damaging for brands' image in a way, especially for luxury brands.
I also think for me personally, when I think about what sectors and industries love luxury, I think consumer aligns really well with early adoption, high net worth, all of those things we think of. But I was actually very excited about Starbucks, because what Starbucks did for coffee, if they could do for Web3 and consumer adoption, would be really interesting. And I think that would also really expedite where we are in terms of consumers being able to use it in their daily life, getting comfortable with the space, wallet adoption, all of those things that maybe add a little bit more friction to where we are today. I think if we can get a few of those mass brands, whether it's Walmart or Starbucks or others, starting to educate and integrate their consumer base, that's the game changer for me, especially in the work we do with more corporate brands, because as soon as you get those big movers, the rest will follow. And I think just knowing where we are today with lots of our work streams, it's a moment of building where folks are thinking about utility and education and how to really build the infrastructure to make this work in the long term, which again is really exciting. It's less about cash grab drops and making press noise and one-offs, but really about being strategic over time, which is where I get excited, because that means we have something that's going to be here to stay.
I'm really glad you brought up infrastructure. So as a crypto native institution that's built our entire tech stack and currently have over 100 person team building this Web3 enablement platform, we need to think about scalability. We need to think about costs and infra, so obviously as this grows, these are serious considerations. And so we talk about, Web3 becoming mainstream, and we have to really dial down to, how many people actually have crypto wallets, how are we set up on the infra side to be able to take on the amount of transactions or interest in Web3. So, we still have a lot of building to do. And I think, now is a really great moment. There's a lot of investment coming into Web3, different projects and companies. And so, I think in terms of, Web3 going mainstream and having mass adoption, we need to think about cost, scalability, and also user experience, right? In terms of, how it's set up. Is it easy to use? Is it seamless between wallets, cross chains, et cetera? So all of those things are really important considerations, and we're working hard to make sure that we push forward to have that infrastructure in place. But these are very important considerations, I think.
And honestly, if someone or you can solve analytics and metrics in the metaverse in these new spaces, that's still something we really lack, is understanding measurement. And I think that's going to be a big conversation next year.
I completely agree. I've already been hearing that conversation, because it's like, yeah, at this point, we're still using I guess what you would consider Web 2 metrics to measure some of these things, because that's all that we really have. But one thing I want to touch upon, just based on the last kind of the last bit of conversation, is that I think the mainstream adoption is really going to depend upon abstracting away a lot of this technology. And Sarah, you mentioning Starbucks was so great because like they didn't overtly put it in anyone's space, and that's something that we strive at Vysical to do. Is that I don't want any of the people working with me to have to scream NFTs, Web3, crypto, wallets, metaverse. Like a lot of 90% of my peer group is so overwhelmed by that, and they have no idea, and it freaks them out. And even people I know that are in the crypto sphere, they think metaverse is a dirty word. And I'm like, any shared computer simulated experience, it's like multiplayer, has chat functionality, is like in and of itself kind of like a metaverse, right? Like you're in a different space, but it's social, and you're kind of able to do different things. So I think that there's going to need to be a lot of utility, a lot of value. There's going to need to be a reason for people to want to participate. But I think the more that we abstract away all the complicated things, the better. And even though it's maybe not, purist, I think having custodial wallets make a lot of sense, because every test that I've done where someone has to generate a wallet to claim something, for me, there's like a 60 to 80% drop off. And it's like when you're trying to get numbers and you're trying to have success in one of these kind of test and learn scenarios, you really can't afford to have that kind of drop off of people that are not fluent in this space, right? And that they don't, that a seed phrase is like too complicated, or the private keys, right? And John Linden from Mythical Games was talking about gamers losing their logins and their passwords multiple times a day. If they had one password and it was not able to be recovered, then they would be so upset. And I think that that's just a truism about humanity that we need to understand, is that we are not that organized. We do not keep things safe, and we need to figure out a way of how this can be, how can we get around this? How can we solve for it? So it's just my 2 cents there.
I think you brought up a really great point that data protection is crucial. There's a lot of talk about, employing zero knowledge proofs as part of the necessary evolution for Web3, because, it kind of removes passwords out of the equation. I think all of us have millions of usernames and passwords, and it's a matter of being super organized. But, imagine that you have a ubiquitous digital identity that's safe, that you can seamlessly use across different communities and places. I think that's going to be essential, because as we continue to really move into the digital era, it's imperative for us to stop those data breaches as we use the internet more. So that's really important. I think that will be essential for Web3 being successful.
Also, interoperability. I'm all about universal, make it one login, one access point that takes me anywhere I want. Yes, let's do it. Simple.
Yeah, I feel like the devs are yeah, it's not that simple. There's the North Star, and that's oftentimes what I work on with clients is the North Star is this, and it's going to take 7 different technologies, some things that are not quite there yet, some that might be there yet, to kind of actually get there. But it's kind of everyone has the expectation of Ready Player One, and it's okay, that's a movie, right? Let's be real, we are not there yet, but we can kind of build there. So a lot of this is managing expectations for people, but some of the tech is incredible. I mean, I was just yesterday I was just at an event in New York, and it's kind of a brainstorm with people from gaming and just different kind of spaces, more on kind of the immersive creative side, but gaming really as a lens that I personally look to, because I think all of us are gamers, and everything is going to become a game. I think that that's just where, if you look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha, if you look at all the 10-year-olds growing up on first person VR shooter games, there's just a world that we are never gonna know, right? It's like Facebook, when the kind of older crew saw Facebook, they're what is that? That doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't for them, right? And a lot of this technology that's being built isn't for us. It's not for us. It's for the younger folks, looking at the kids playing Roblox, right? And what are they graduating Roblox, and what are they doing there? But, there's some crazy innovative stuff with using AI, Midjourney. David Holz is a good friend, and he's, done with great success on there. And I think that they're having a lot of utility and use cases for as an example in gaming, one of the biggest cost sucks is like creating avatars, right? Like it's $80,000 to create one character in a game, roughly. That's a lot of money. And thinking about like environment design and like building these open worlds that are going to always be unique and like keep people engaged. So with AI, they've been able to basically create infinite environments replicated with certain parameters, as well as take in like user feedback of like what they want to see in an environment, and a developer can set certain parameters, and that can be it can be generated automatically with artificial intelligence. So there's some incredible things coming down the pipeline that are going to make these processes far more efficient, far more cost effective, and so much more personalized. So I'm some of it's not there yet. It's like, can the devs do something? The devs are like, F you. And then some of it is obviously, it's coming, right? Which is great.
Yeah, this is super fascinating. Just I feel like we've veered into the conversation of what barriers exist to mainstream adoption of Web3 in terms of data security, data tracking tools, and all these other infrastructure needs that we have. Excellent. Yeah. So I'm curious. Like we have like this wish list of technology that we still need in order to get mainstream adoption. But how do we know like that we've actually gotten mainstream adoption? How do we know we've gotten there?
I mean, for me, it's like, can my mom in Pittsburgh do it, right? Like that to me is like the end all be all, right? We've had the final adoption where it's that generation. That's obviously a long way away. But I also think it's less about every time there's a drop, is it a big press moment? It just feels like it's integrated into our daily lives. People understand what the terms mean, wallet adoption or whatever it might turn into. We're seeing everyone have one, the way that maybe Instagram or Facebook, other channels have evolved into, and it just becomes part of your daily life. And there isn't that friction, confusions, fear. We just all kind of accepted and moved on. And it follows us whether we're using it at the mall to shop in whatever iteration, live or virtual that might be, or you're going to the gas station, the grocery store. It just is there, some capacity.
I don't know. I personally don't think that any of these buzzwords are actually going to compel consumers to change any of their behaviors. And it's like, I mean, even when you, again, going back to gaming, just because for me, I think the convergence of all of these things, like gaming is a huge kind of component of it. They should love NFTs. They should love it. They're already spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Like, I guess like back when I did my first NFT project as a prototype for Richemont Group in early 2018, at the time, people were spending $100 million a month on Fortnite skins a month. So it's like the fact that they don't own that. Fortnite goes out of business, which like probably won't. It's doing quite well, but like if it did, theoretically, all that value, that money that they put into the game would be gone. So it's like you would think by rationalization that they would love this concept of being able to actually own their assets, but they actually by and large are super against NFTs, and they're like, no, not into it. And so what I think is like more what mainstream adoption is really going to be is like abstracting it away, right? Like companies take it on because they're like, wow, this is a better way of doing these things. Like I can actually own my consumer versus having to be beholden to all of these different kind of Web2 channels. Like I can actually have a one-to-one relationship with them. I can market directly to them. Again, like imagine again having like a wallet holder, have an NFT of like this jacket and there's an NFC in it. And like you can literally have like a one-to-one communication with the product owner, who's ever holding the jacket. Like those are such interesting tools that like as a consumer, I don't need to know about. I don't need to care about. Like all I know is like, okay, cool. I've got perks. I've got some value, right? Like it's enhancing my experience somehow, and they don't care what it is. They'll come on board. So that's really like my version, is that I think that it's going to be more businesses that are going to take this on because it makes sense for them strategically, and less about kind of like a PR marketing headline. But that's just my personal opinion.
I would also add on, it adds on a huge secondary revenue stream for companies, right? If you think about primary sales of tickets or mileage programs or these types of things, even apparel, right? All of a sudden being able to track and sell on the blockchain allows you to continue to earn revenue on resale. And that's a massive amount of money that a company could hold on to in the future.
So, I have to like touch on that because honestly, I just had so many interesting interactions, at like the highest level of folks that honestly are like, well, first of all the big luxuries are like, it's pittance. They're like, we will never pinch pennies. Like, you know what I mean? The secondary revenue, the royalties, which is compounding a huge, a huge kind of contributor to their business, they think is like them being cheap. So they actually are like not open to that at all, which is fascinating. But then secondly, I won't name anyone, but had a crazy interaction where as a company, they're like, well, we don't even know if we want to offer authentication and the ability to definitively determine whether a secondary product is real, because I might rather want someone to buy a fake bag on Poshmark for thousands of dollars and then never again buy secondary and only go to the store to buy a bag. And I was like, wow, that's dark. That's super dark. But like, those are kind of like the things that, I think are resistance to Web3, right? Or like, because sometimes like it could actually, in their minds, cannibalize their primary business model. But even back early 2018, it's like the conversations that I had was like, more people should be like Rolex. Like Rolex is like, we love having a robust secondary market. It fuels our primary business. But, like at the time, right, like Epic and PUBG and anyone that had kind of a skin market, they're like, no, if we open it up, like it's over for us. And so I think it's like overcoming that fear of everything, right? And even big brands, and I'm obviously looking at the lens of luxury. I mean, e-commerce was terrifying for them. Like the crazily fun fact, like the first e-commerce, the luxury retailer on e-commerce was Hermes in 2001, which is shocking. And that's obviously had, some problems for them just because of their infrastructure that they're updating. But that's crazy to think about. So there's always been resistance, and hopefully those fears that are, only a decade old will force them to consider changes and implementing these things, just given that they can't afford to be left behind. And all those folks that are like chief digital officers now were the ones shouting about like, we need to transition to internet and e-commerce. And I don't know, I cheekily like to call it meta-commerce. We'll see if that actually goes anywhere, but that's kind of the way that I envision this new convergence.
But about this secondary market, NFTs basically provide us a secondary market for everything. I think that's obviously really cool. You can generate revenue from those secondary sales, but I think some market players currently beneficiate from the fact that they operate in an imperfect market, and this is enjoyable in a way if you're a player in this market. For example, the art market, and I think there will be some resistance to implementing secondary market for everything, because that might lead to unprecedented, times trading, and might, I think, for art at least, degrade the value, the current value of such things. Because today, selling your artwork is kind of a complicated process. You need to go to places, go to art gallery, get it estimated, and etc. And I think if there was a perfect market for such things, that might be negative. And this is, kind of a resistance that we could meet. And more generally, I think what is harming the Web3 today is all the technical jargon. The word NFT in itself is already a barrier, I think. This is infrastructure work. It's destined to tech-savvy people. Not everyone is tech-savvy, and I think we should really try to prescribe those technical words from our vocabulary in order to facilitate adoption. And, because if you don't have the knowledge, you can feel pretty intimidated. If you don't know what an NFT is, you might think it's something like very complicated to grasp, whereas you should be able to replace the word NFT with another word that is the service you're proposing or the product you're proposing.
I agree with all the comments that everyone's contributed, and I think it's important to take a step back and just recognize, or that the promise of Web3 is the freedom for users to interact privately, publicly, without any intermediaries in a trustless environment, right? And so that ubiquitousness, is what really it's offering. The availability of internet, irrespective of time, location, device, connectivity, right? Unfortunately, in the real world, given governments, geopolitical, that's not the case for everyone, right? There are some real roadblocks and blockages for everyone having access. And so I think it's important, as everyone said, education, infrastructure, but also, regulators, governments are looking closely, and obviously when and where it suits them. Some of them perhaps are studying it further to make sure that that this journey that we're all going on together, is compliant, or protects consumers, right? Because at the end of the day, this is the digital future. There are unfortunately bad actors out there. We've seen security hacks, et cetera, and so it's an evolution that will take time. And I think it's just important to remember that not everyone everywhere in the world is there yet in terms of their ability to access.
Compliance and regulatory. Sorry, my English it's limits. Is super important. And I think what we are witnessing from our clients today is, a bit some kind of frightening towards this blurry regulatory framework, especially in Europe with the RGPD rules. This is a big headache for many brands willing to develop a NFT. Whether Ethereum is RGPD compliant or not is already a debate in itself. And also, like, who is signing a smart contract within in a brand, who is responsible for all that is something they really need assistance with. And I think you guys will provide some good solutions for that.
Yeah, this topic of regulation is very interesting to me, because I know that a lot of our non-American counterparts will just not sell to Americans because of our regulatory system. That to me seems like something that could act as a barrier to Web3 mainstream adoption. So I guess, how do we kind of move forward with that, with like regulation kind of being behind innovation?
Yeah, I think it's crucial. And, at Amber Group, we have, regulatory licenses in many jurisdictions around the world. We actually proactively work with regulators to ensure that, best practices are being instilled, and that we can help further the dialogue in terms of, getting those who haven't come from a crypto native background up to speed and understanding, our purpose and how we add value to our clients. And so I think speaking the same language is important. And I think, thankfully, as time goes on, more of the regulators around the world realize the tremendous potential that crypto, Web3, DeFi, NFTs offer. And so it's just about continuing that dialogue and ensuring that everyone is getting up the curve together.
I love that. And I also think it's highlighting the good actors, right? And making sure that in the storytelling around the space, it's not always the bad, and figuring out ways to really share stories of companies doing it right, creators doing it right, interesting innovations, and also candidly, like, having a seat at the table where those decisions are being made around regulation and compliance, and working with best-in-class partners who are trying to deliver on those, to make sure that you're providing the safest opportunities for your clients, for yourself too, in the space, and making good choices. But yeah, it's an interesting area that I don't think we've seen the last of the repercussions around for the moment.
No, and I think that, like, the number one thing is, like, we are all responsible of flagging and dismissing and trying to advocate against predatory business models, because that's part of the whole reason why we're in this little bit of a pickle, I would say, is that some people, obviously, very, very known people on not just like the kind of like brand innovation side or like the consumer side that we're more so talking about, but just folks in the crypto sphere in general, just doing things that are not smart decisions. And then hindsight, when you're like, how is this even possible, right? But it affects all of us as a whole, right? Because then it just, folks that were already on the fence, or then now like, what's going on? Is everything a scam? And that's the last thing that we need, is like bad press to take, again, like this innovation, all of these innovations that are collectively so fascinating and so like boundary pushing, to then add more regulation, because the mom and pops and like retail investors are being hurt because they're like speculating in assets that may or may not be like unregistered securities, and it's like crap, like we definitely can't have that happening. So like we are all responsible for kind of sounding the alarm against that. That's what my thoughts anyway.
Yes, I think the recent bull market has, brought many speculators to the market, and this bear market has, done great in kicking them out of the market in a way. But for mass adoption, to me, regulation is key, because the speculation is kind of killing innovation in a way, and having cases like Luna is really a hurdle to mass adoption, I would say.
Well, you know what is crazy to me too is that the fact that, I'm all for regulation. It's important because I need to know the box I can play within. Like, just draw the box and like I'll play within the box. But instead of drawing the box, they're like, no, we're just going to hire more people to prosecute. And I'm like, okay, but how? It's really hard to like break a law that you don't know is a law. Because like then it's you could just say that person, this person, that thing, and what's crazy too is like legal obviously does the best they can to keep everyone out of trouble, but like they are not going to get in trouble if they give bad advice. So then that's even freakier. Is like your legal might be like, well, it seems like it's fine, but if they're wrong, then like heads are on the table. And so it's just it's scary in that way. But I mean, I think proceeding forward with caution is all that we can do. That's all that we can do. And if it smells fishy, it probably is. Run away from it. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Use the best guidance you can at the time, but also it's a new space and we'll all get there eventually, but there's definitely going to be bumps along the road for sure.
One thing I want to add on to this, because I think it's really fascinating, also what Romain was saying about, the recent bull market, is it brought so many people in. Like I had friends that had never heard anything about crypto. Like, should I buy some Ethereum? And I'm like, I don't know. You got some money you can lose? Like, if so, then sure, like, because it's a very risky asset. But what's funny about that is everyone got in at the top because it's like frothy mania. Everyone's FOMOing in, and then everyone lost their shirts. So it's funny having, people come to me that they want to market to like crypto whales and like Web3 communities. And I'm like, honestly, if you do that, you're going to fail, because like they don't exist right now. Like they're not aping in, they've just lost their shirts on spending $100K on an NFT. And like, they're like, I'm like afraid, like, unless it has real value and is going to provide real utility to a normal person that doesn't give an F about Web3, it's probably not going to work. And like that, I stick to that, at least until we get into another cycle. But I don't know. I mean, recession, that's all that I hear is the R word. So we're in it. It's coming. I don't know. So like, these are the things that we have to be super mindful of in any project that we do with anybody, because it's here or coming.
If I might just chime in, obviously, because we're a mass liquidity provider, we trade upwards of 5% of the daily volume of crypto, or market makers. So, obviously in any market, you're going to have, bear and bull cycles. And obviously we've been through, several crypto winters already. And so I think that just reinforces, the point that you need to work with a secure, trusted provider if you are interested in building, exposure and your wealth within digital assets. And there are tools available, products available, so that you can get exposure. And you can, obviously combat some of the inflationary pressures that everyone is feeling. But I think the important thing to remember is that even in, the traditional asset classes like, high beta, growth tech, a lot of people bought a lot of those equities at the top of the market, right? And they also lost their shirt. So at the end of the day, volatility, while, digital assets have characteristics of volatility, so do the other asset classes as well. So I think at the end of the day, we just have to be very, cognizant of, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and who we're doing it with, because that's true of any marketplace.
Great.
Of course. I mean, sorry, but like volatility is present everywhere, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like the bull market attracts people like that are very greedy in a way, and it's always, I think innovation is much harder during bull market for that reason, because every time you're gonna knock on the door, there's a great chance that you will find someone who's here just to extract the maximum of value from you or the ecosystem, and that people who are genuinely interested in the technology, would stay. And that is what we need to be, I think, very mindful of, with respect to speculation, and don't consider that we are moving towards mass adoption when tons of people are entering the space during bull markets, just to, get richer or see a financial opportunity there. I think it's really cool that, crypto is a way for young people to get empowered. And since, I think we're keener on volatility than our grandparents, because there is a much greater chance to financial independence, especially with respect to housing or stuff like that. but yeah, we need to be careful, I think, about speculation, especially when designing products for brands in our business.
I agree.
Well, Sarah, oh yeah, well, sorry, yeah, Sarah, I remember you said earlier, like cash grabs, and like
Yeah.
the amount of people that I saw over the last couple of years that were like in it for cash grabs, and then when they realized that that wasn't a bad word, they would like ask for a cash grab, be like, "But I don't want to do a cash grab," and I'm like, but now, thankfully, because of the market volatility, and like you guys are right, it's not just crypto, right? That was beholden to this volatility, like everything was, right, across the board. And I think that there's a massive opportunity for crypto as an investment, but again, like being smart and strategic. But I'm just so glad, because we're in a bit of a bear market, that there aren't those people that are just like shysters trying to like extract value from the ecosystem without bringing anything of substance. That's going to be super healthy for the growth and development, as we've seen through all of these crypto cycles. Like every time it's like, it goes like this, but the ones that outlast this unsexy period where like, people are like, "Ooh, you're in crypto, like, are you sure?" Like outlasting that is like how you're going to do well, because on the other side of it are so many exciting, interesting things, and that's what we're here for, is like the innovation. I'm sorry, Sarah, I interrupted you. So.
No, great. And I think what you're saying, I love your example of your friend, like, should I ETH? And like, I have found with some personal friends, like, yes, let's buy the ETH, but let's buy something else. Like maybe it's an NFT you love, or maybe it's entering into a community. So like beyond the investment and sitting in an account somewhere, you're actually seeing the capability of what that investment can bring you, and having that interaction and getting to make it feel tangible. And I feel like that's the most fun part as I'm introducing new folks to the space, or we're bringing, executives along with us for the ride. It's beyond just holding. It's actually putting those investments to work somewhere interesting.
Yeah, this conversation has been so illuminating, especially as a reporter. Like I'm brimming with more questions to ask you all, but I think I'm going to cede some of my curiosity to the chat real quick and do some of the Q&A questions. One that I saw from Andreas Nikolos is, what do you think mainstream companies need to fully integrate Web3 into their business models and create meaningful lines of business? Is it time, infrastructure? Most ventures today are more surface level or experimental.
For me personally, it's frictionless on-ramps and figuring out how to also have some sort of fiat on-ramp for consumers. That is really important. And I would say the second component is education. There's still such a lack of easy, accessible, fun education for consumers that a lot of the companies I work with, that's a big component when we're going to market or thinking about strategy. It's making sure that you're paving the way so you're not just dropping this on your customers. You've brought them along. They understand why and how to use it, and make it feel easily accessible, rather than just something that feels tricky or complicated to join in on.
What's interesting also about this question is Andreas is insisting on meaningful lines of business, and yeah, I think like not every product from a brand is destined to become an NFT. Far from that. Maybe your most iconic products, to which you want to bring some customization components, some gamification, that could be a suitable choice to develop NFTs for. But obviously some products are less well designed to become NFTs. You don't want that potential upside or downside. You want to have that product for sure for its utility, because it's one of your basic needs. But for more experiential product, I think there's a real value of them being developed as NFT and being able to provide your client a digital first experience prior to getting the physical product. I think what Artifact has been doing with the pre-ordering system through NFTs and being able to enjoy the product that you will receive in 3 months, because it's being produced at the moment digitally first, is really interesting also in terms of sustainability. And you also solve a problem, the sell-through problem, and you set it to 100%, which before was a poor metric, because that meant you were out of stock for a period of time. And in that case, it's perfect sell-through and minimum resources consumption for what you're providing.
Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, listen, if we could all get to no inventory businesses, that would be incredible for the environment every company, and that would just make me feel great. But in lieu of that, right? I mean, even just to add on to this question, or to kind of like semi-answer this question, add on to what Romain just said, Nike had the hardest time figuring out how to put crypto on their balance sheet. Like, I don't even know if they figured it out. So it's like, until that happens, right? Like from even like an accounting standpoint, that I think is going to be for major businesses, public companies. There's public companies I'm speaking with where they're like, how the heck do we play in this space? And it's like, well, you can't do your own token launch. That's definitely going to get you in trouble. But like, I mean, can you hold, how much crypto can you hold, or how many, how can you play and interact? So like, I think until those questions are really, really clarified with regulators, but I mean, accounting is the most basic, right? How do you hold crypto on your balance sheet? Like, what does that even look like? And then how do you report that at the end of the year or quarterly? Like, those I think are the biggest questions that are going to like keep large companies from truly integrating Web3 and not just doing these like little side projects, right? Because right now the side project is the safest, cleanest way to do things, and anything beyond that is like pretty tricky.
Yeah, and I think leaning into partnerships and sort of coming together and understanding from crypto native firms like us, just the lay of the land and how the ecosystem works, and like coming up the learning curve on sort of what we understand of how things work, and helping those companies on their journey into Web3. I mean, that's exactly what Openverse it was made to do, is really to make sure that everyone is transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3. So, we've been around officially since 2017, unofficially a bit earlier than that. And so, we're really welcoming the opportunity to connect with different brands to make sure that they, are positioned well, and we can be as helpful as possible as they get into Web 3.
We probably have time for one last question. I'm seeing one from Lee Sullinger. How do we balance the need sometimes to accept venture financing in order to scale Web3 efforts while maintaining an authentic personal ownership of data and persona that differentiates Web3 from the past? Have we seen this balancing act done well?
Oh, no. I think all the VCs that got like preferential unlocks and just dumped on retail was pretty bad. That was pretty savage. So no, I don't think that's been figured out. And I mean, think about it from a venture capitalist point of view. Like, investing in an IDO is so amazing because you get your investment unlocks in like 6 to 12 months. That's unheard of in venture capital. And then you're generally unlocking at like peak mania, and then you kind of go away and then you don't care anymore. So like, I don't know if that's been figured out. Like, that is like a true balance that, is tough, because as a new company, you want money, and if you're, gosh, it's complex, but I don't think that it was handled well in the beginning. So let's see, maybe we can make better iterations for the next bull run.
I think it depends. I think there are great firms doing strategic investments that are offering a lot of additional advisory. That's actually been really helpful. And in some cases, networking or other types of relationships, we do a bit. And candidly, it's been great to learn from the companies in our portfolio, but also friends that sit across major VCs too, understanding how they think about investing in the space. It's also allowed, I think, for a lot of research and development and understanding of trends and learnings that generally are shared amongst their portfolio, which is also can be really helpful. And in some cases, just candidly for me, does help weed through a lot of options and allow me to look at companies that are best in class faster because they've been proven, or there's been obviously a lot of research and data behind it before the investment was made. So in some cases, it's been really helpful. But I'm sure in the community, it is a very hot topic and not necessarily always positive.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. This has been such a pleasure to speak with all of you today. In the last minute that we have, a question from Gaza Flaza says, what are the details of the speakers here? Like, how do they get to know you more or reach out to you if they want to?
Oh yeah, go.
No, go for it.
I'm at Beccatron on Twitter and pretty much everything. So BEKAHTRON.
I'm a big LinkedIn user, so find me there. Super responsive and love to build my feed better and curate news from all of you folks in the community. So please hit me up.
I'm also on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well. I'm at SHLUGS, Schlugs. So feel free to reach out. Happy to chat.
Same on my side, LinkedIn, and my Twitter is RJ on the low.
Awesome. And I'm MK Manoylov. You can find me at M Manoylov on Twitter. You can also check out my articles on the block. And yeah, thank you all so much again. Like I said, this was such a pleasure chatting with everyone. And yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Take care.